Alrighty, yo, what is up, Knights? Just Rick here, bringing you guys episode 8 of the Arad Airways podcast. Now, guys, it is the first podcast of the year, and I've waited too long, honestly. I've waited way too long to talk about it because so much has happened since the last podcast. I think in the last podcast we were talking about the jump server and stuff like that. That is so old news now. We've got so many things that have happened since then, and really I'm not going to be able to cover it all. So really this kind of podcast is really going to be honing in on maybe the bigger stuff that has been happening to the game. If you guys don't remember the format, basically I'm going to be talking about current news, at least with our server, future news that could be coming down the line, as well as just any extra topic that I want to talk about. And trust me, guys, we have a lot to discuss. So anyway, guys, let's go ahead and start the topic off right how we should. 95 cap, Harlem update, new level cap, new gear, new possibilities, potentially some new raids. That we're going to be talking about all of that in this video. So anyway, guys, without further ado, let's go. Alrighty, guys, 95 cap. Let me tell you guys, we're going to talk a lot most of this stream about the 95 cap because there's a lot to talk about. At the same time, I also want to bring, harken back to the old level caps, both level 85 and the level 90 cap during this discussion because it's all still kind of relevant. Just because we have a new level cap, we have stronger gear, we have new content. We actually don't have all of the content that 95 cap has. We are actually missing a lot. We're kind of at the very burgeoning at the very start of 95 cap, so we're still doing a lot of the older content. Luke, for instance, is kind of the main thing in the previous level cap that we're still doing to this day. It's probably one of the most important things to do. But things like Beast Dungeon, things like Anton Raid, those kinds of things are getting phased out. I would even go so far as to say they're dead. It's dead content. Nobody's doing it. And we'll be explaining and touching up on the previous level cap a little bit during this discussion. But first and foremost, guys, I got to tell you guys about 95 cap. I want to give you my opinion. We've had 95 cap for about a little more than a month now. So I've gotten to test out the content a little bit. And like I said, we don't have everything that 95 cap has to offer. Not by a long shot, okay? We already know Fiend Wars, which we're going to talk about later in this podcast. We also got things like the new swap system as well as Prey Raid. So these are all level 95 content things that we don't have yet in DFOG, and we're just kind of waiting. So we're at the very start. We're starting into 95 cap. And even at the very start, guys, this game has been made a lot more accessible, I think is the word I'm going to use for this. It's a lot more accessible. People who are new to the game or people who have not been devoting a lot of time, this is an amazing time to play a little bit of catch up, okay? If you've been a little bit lax in the previous level caps and you haven't been bothering to do a lot of lukes and stuff like that, this is a perfect opportunity to play some catch up. In fact, I already know some people personally who maybe weren't participating in the previous cap, but they're already jumping into this new content and catching up with us right away. So it's something that it's very accessible because of that, and I think it's really nice. I think it benefits both types of players. People who have been playing in the previous cap have a really easy time into getting into the best in slot stuff with the new cap, and people who haven't been playing very long, they have to take a little bit of a detour, I think, but they can catch up really quickly as well. So that's kind of my favorite thing about 95 cap, how accessible it is and how quick it is to gear. And when I say quick it is to gear, I mean, dude, you are very powerful, very fast. I kind of felt like in the previous level cap, the further we got along, the more that we had extra stuff like beast content and loot content, that the longer you couldn't participate in that content, the further and further away you got in terms of gearing. There wasn't a lot of middle ground. Well, with 95 cap, it really shores up that gap by introducing 3 different gear sets. So I guess I'll talk about them really quickly because we'll be mentioning them throughout forever now, at least with 95 cap. So the 3 new gear sets that have been introduced. First is probably my favorite so far is the Harlem Legendaries set. 11 out of 12 set. That's your armor, accessory, and sub-equipment. 3 different sets, and altogether compose an extremely powerful, easy to farm legendary set. Now, if you look previously, I mentioned we want to talk about the other level caps. 85 cap had the Saint Horn legendary set. That's that's a 6-piece set at the maximum, and it wasn't really, it was a part of a set, but it could be any of the 3 armor, accessory, or sub-equipments, whatever you had open. And the rest of the slots, the rest of the 5 slots were just filled with whatever you could, you know, epics or something, maybe another set, you know, you're basically combining 2 sets or something like that. It just was not optimal to make anything good out of it, you know. And so this legendary set, the fact that it's full 11 out of 12 set just makes it a lot more easier to farm towards characters who don't have anything. You know, people who are not very geared, they can just get this legendary completely and then start working off of that, because the next piece of gear set is actually an upgrade to that legendary. It's the Harlem Epics, and you can take your legendaries and upgrade them into an epic, which is, you know, let's not forget, I think this is, we're going to talk about this later in another topic, but Harlem Epics are actually 95 epics, okay? So I know there is better gear than that, right? But we're still talking about 95 epics. They're statted accordingly. And, you know, I would still say that the upgraded 90 set is a little bit stronger, but we're talking you had to have gotten a 90 set previous cap and then upgraded it via Luke. This 95 Harlem set is close to that, like very close, you know, marginally close. So the fact that you can get that simply by upgrading from a legendary, and trust me when I say it's very easy to do that in comparison to, you know, say getting an upgraded Luke set, that's really a boon to playing this catch-up game, because you're going to be a lot stronger and you're already going to be at a stronger starting point due to the Harlem Legendaries. So Harlem Epics, I really love those 2 things right there. And then finally we have the Tayberrs Epics, which is, you know, this other stuff, the Harlem stuff, the Harlem Legendaries and the Harlem Epics, they're great. They're great starting points to get you endgame content. I think if you have a full Harlem set, you're easily able to start doing Tayberrs and doing any content before Tayberrs, like Luke, Beast, all of that kind of stuff. You'll be fine. In fact, I'd go so far as to say if you really put a lot of effort into your Harlem gear, such as enchantments and stuff like that, you could probably do Fiend Wars when it comes out with a comparable, you know, with a decent setup and all that. I think it might be doable with just that. But most people, they're looking at the best in slot gear at this time. That is the Tayberrs gear. That's the 95 Tayberrs Epic, and you can only get that from the Sky Rift Hell mode, as well as farming it from Sky Fragments in Tayberrs Dungeon. So most people who are trying to get that are already mega hyper geared. You know, they were wearing the best in slot in the previous cap, and they kind of jumped into trying to get that kind of gear. Now, the thing about that gear is that it's kind of like the starting point to the real end game, the true end game that we don't have yet, okay? So Tayberrs gear, it is the strongest gear, better than any gear we've ever had before, but it's going to be like the starting point. So when you get that set, you're going to start doing Fiend Wars, and Fiend Wars upgrades your armor Tayberrs set into an upgraded Tayberrs set. So it's going to be even stronger than the Tayberrs set is already, which is already the best in slot. And then after that, you know, you can still keep trying to get the Tayberrs accessories and sub-equipment and the weapons and stuff like that. But we're not going to have a chance to upgrade that until Prey Raid, which is far, far down the line, I would say. We have a lot of stuff we have to do in preparation for that before Prey Raid comes out. So getting our Tayberrs equipment, getting some new enchantments, putting a lot of work into that new gear. There's going to be a new swap system to maybe give us a slight damage boost to whatever our current swap is. Even the best in slot swaps are going to be replaced by this better stuff. So that's like another 5-10% increase in damage. You know, there's a lot of marginal stuff that we're going to have to do in preparation, and that's kind of what this level cap is providing. I am hoping that we get some of that content sooner than later. I don't want to be rushed into this, especially the swap set, because I hear the swap set takes a little bit of time to farm, and it's nothing more than just, you know, farming this extra content. But it's content that you're going to have to do on every one of your characters again, which is a lot more difficult than, say, OV was to farm an OV set, because, you know, you're going to need a lot of time and perhaps a little bit more luck to get yourself a best in slot swap set, at least with this new 95 cap. But I'm looking forward to it, you know. I'm looking forward to getting a little bit stronger. You know, this game is all about a game of inches. DFO is a game all about, you know, when you get all of your bulk, your course adjustments on your gear, right? When you finally get the Tayberrs gear, you know, now we're starting to talk a little bit of 5% here, 10% here, enchantments here, getting your amplification if you have it here. All of that will contribute to making your characters a lot stronger, but it all kind of adds up. So it's something that 95 cap kind of reset all of that. You know, whatever gear you had previously, you can throw it out the window. I use it, but I mean, just know that you're going to be replacing all of it, starting from Tayberrs. Okay, so that's why I kept saying that Tayberrs is a starting point because, yeah, you can put a little bit of effort into your Harlem Legendaries, into your Harlem Epics. You can even put some enchantments on there. Just know that it is a dead-end gear set, and the real starting point is Tayberrs, you know. So get your complete Tayberrs set, and we can start working off of that set to actually get your end-to-end hyper-end game gear set. So anyway, that's how the gear progression works. I know I've already made a guide video on that, and it's been my pride. You know, it's been a little while now, but I did end up winning the Share Your Expertise kind of guide event. So I thank you guys for, you know, showing a lot of love on that video. That guide, by the way, the E3G guide, that was just a starting point. I do have some other topics that I want to talk about. So I already have the script written for another part of the E3G guide, as well as at least a couple other topics that we're going to talk about once the content gets released. Like I already mentioned, the new swap system, something I definitely want to make a guide on, but only after that content's released and I've tried it out for a little. Some people were like, man, Rick, you were late on that video, on the E3G guide video, but you got to realize, guys, I have to experience the content first. I have to see it first, see how it works for DFOG, and then I can start writing the script and then make sure I understand the content before I try to make some guides on it. So anyway, all that aside, so I've talked about how 95 cap works. Now let me start telling you guys about my actual opinions about 95 cap. Okay, this is where the subjectiveness comes to it, and I really do think that 95 cap is one of the best caps we've ever gotten. I have played DFO for 4 years now, and I've been there almost every second of every event. You know, I've been there for every content update. I was there when we were farming OV and we got excited when we got OV sets. I was there when I got my first 85 Epic set. I was there when, you know, even before that, when I was farm to see got to. I've been there for everything, okay? And it has been challenging. It is very challenging from the very start of this game, and it has only been getting easier. You know, even leveling back in the day was hard. Leveling, getting sets, getting even decent sets, hard, the hardest thing I've ever had to do. You know, and then they kept getting easier and easier. You know, so they started doing more raids, and the raids kind of allowed people to join up with other people and get stronger faster. You know, you got DI really easily in raids, and then more hells. They made hells easier by, you know, only having insane hell mode. So they've made it easier across the years. And here we are in 2019 with 95 cap, and it has never been this easy, okay? Never. So if you're looking into trying to start DFO and you've always been intimidated by the fact that everybody seems to be so strong and there's so much that you have to do to get strong yourself, I love that feature in this cap, okay? You can catch up so very quickly to everybody else and be comparable very, very quickly. And by that token, yes, it's kind of painful to know that all of the effort that we've spent so far over the past, you know, couple years in 90 cap, where we were trying to upgrade our Luke stuff, getting a Heblon set and all of that stuff, you know, by the time we finish it, when we finish our beast and we're all like happy with all our best in slot stuff, you know, it is a little bit painful to know that all of that effort is just going, it's not really gone to waste, but really it has to be redone. You have to remake everything that you have done, all your armors, all your accessories, all the Heblons. You have to redo and re-put in that effort to get a whole brand new set, and it's like the game is reset, and that is a little bit disheartening. But the fact that it's so easy now really eases that burden, right? Getting a whole set is not going to take you very long, and mainly it's because of the systems that they have in place. My favorite systems that they have are the NPCs that give you these 3 materials. So the ones that I talked about, the 3 gear sets, you have NPCs that are focused around giving you those gear sets outright. I mean, you can get the legendary pieces by farming just legendary materials. You can get the Harlem Epics by just farming Harlem Epic materials. And hell, you can even get the Tayberrs equipment by just farming Tayberrs materials. You just need to get the materials, and slowly but surely, even if you're not very lucky, which back in the day it was completely RNG based, you know, you could farm it really quickly and get your whole set very quickly if you're lucky, or if you're unlucky, you could just farm it forever and never get it. And that's kind of like the biggest fear that most people had in the old gearing system. No longer the case, right? you only have to get lucky a few times, and you'll be able to finish entire sets relatively quickly because of the more consistent, guaranteed consistent, and very easy and quick method of getting these sets. All of the sets. Legendaries, Harlem Epics, and Tayberrs Epics. Now, yes, they're going to take varying degrees of time. The Tayberrs Epic, even though, you have to farm Tayberrs every week and you only get a certain amount of material every week, you can basically farm yourself a piece every month. And so you only need to get yourself a few pieces to drop from hell mode to kind of compensate for that. Every piece that you get to drop is essentially like saving yourself a month worth of farming time that you don't have to get it from the NPC anymore. Even a little bit less than that if you're upgrading from a Beast or Heblon set. So I really like that feature, the consistency, and that's why I say this is the easiest level cap and the easiest way to catch up is because of how easy it is. So I really love 95 cap. It's also really easy to level to 95. I've already leveled 18. I want to say about 18 to 20 characters already to max level. Only takes a couple days, honestly. If you just use your FP for a couple days, you're going to be at max level. So I've heard some people excuse all the excuses, and I keep saying, I'm like, dude, this game has been made baby mode. The leveling is baby mode. I still contend with that, okay? Really baby mode leveling, 5 levels, 2 days, just use your FP, and especially if you were playing in the previous cap, you already have all the gear. That's going to make you more than ready to be able to do all the content that 95 cap has to offer. So, really easy to level, really easy to gear up. I love it, and, I'm all for it. Let's keep going. So, this past month has been about preparation. Now, I do want to take a little bit of time to explain what 95 cap has revealed to me, and that is that while I agree that 95 cap is pretty awesome, 90 cap was pretty cancer, okay? 90 cap was cancer by comparison, okay? And I don't want to harp on this too much, but I just want to say everything about 90 cap screams to me stopgap measures. Stopgap. And by that I mean it's just a way to plug up some of the holes that 90 cap left, okay? There was such a big gear discrepancy between people who were strong and people who were trying to get into that strong content, and everything that they added to the game only made that problem worse. I'm talking Beast, I'm talking how long it took you to get a whole Heblon, upgraded Luke, and a Savior's Triumph weapon, just how long you had to do Luke, how long you had to do Beast, and all of that was just in an effort to hold us over before 95 cap was released. And it's really obvious when you look at how dead that content is. When you look at Beast channel right now, nobody's doing Beast. It just doesn't make any sense logically to do Beast anymore, especially when you have the alternative of getting the Harlem Legendaries and the Harlem Epics now, how easy it is to farm those. And you look at Beast, and Beast, while it may be stronger, you have to upgrade essentially twice, okay? If you get a Beast accessory set, you have to upgrade another accessory set. Say you have to get, you might have to upgrade 3 times, honestly. You had to upgrade to get the Infinite Avarice piece, then you have to upgrade again to get the Beast accessories, and then you have to upgrade again to get the Tayberrs accessories. Fuck all of that, okay? Don't worry about using any resources, any souls. You're going to have to use a lot of souls by doing that. Upgrading 2 or 3 times just to get your Tayberrs pieces, and at the end of the day, you're only saving yourself a couple 100 fragments or something for sky fragments. Screw all of that. Just farm yourself the Harlem set. It's so much easier. That's what I keep saying. 95 cap is way easier. This 90 cap stuff was way bloated in terms of the duration of time it took you to get these sets. I'm telling you guys, since the content was released, Luke content, I was there like the first day of Luke content, was failing hard on the first couple days of Luke. But after that, we didn't stop. We did not stop for a single second, for a single day. We didn't hardly miss any raids. And we hadn't completed the sets until close to 95 cap getting released. Beast came out, we were there day 1 of Beast, and we didn't get to enjoy our Beast accessories for a little bit more than, a month or 2. It's all just been a bloated way to kind of hold us over until 95 cap gets released and we get to do it again. So it was just, in comparison, when you want to compare the 95 cap, I really like it, but it makes 90 cap look even more cancerous than it ever could have been. And the fact that Beast is so dead now just kind of proves that, right? There was no reason to do Beast. I'm looking back now and I'm like, yeah, I do have the best in slot stuff currently, but would it have been a big deal if I just kept my 5 senses on my Elven Knight and Paladin? Would I have been distraught about having 5 senses on those characters? I wouldn't care, honestly. The damage increase that you get from Beast to 5 senses is not enough to bar you out of doing any other endgame content, whether it be Tayberrs. Now you could do Tayberrs just fine in 5 senses. So I'm just saying, all of this 95 content makes 90 cap look like crap in comparison. So just be happy about 95 cap, guys. That's all I want to talk about. Moving on from my opinions about 95 cap, which I say is pretty awesome. Leveling is awesome, gearing is awesome. It has come with some drawbacks and some things people are talking about now that I haven't really seen much of. I know somebody's probably talked about it in the past, but I'm seeing it a lot more often now, and that is a little bit of the elitism kind of thing here. And really what this applies to is whenever you try to apply to a pub raid or something, when people are trying to accept randoms into a quick raid group, Luke raid is pretty much the main thing that we're going to be doing nowadays. Luke is an 8-man raid, as opposed to Anton's 20-man raid, which is a lot more coordinated. Nobody does Anton anymore. Anton is dead content. The only reason you do it is for DI, which you can get most of your DI usage out of Luke. And like I said earlier, it's easy enough to gear up your character in a Luke raid ready set. Now, where the elitism comes is that people who have maybe in the previous level cap gotten all of the gear, in the previous level cap have their 90 Luke upgraded stuff and all of that, they're objectively going to probably be a little bit stronger than anybody who's using the 95 cap stuff all the way up to and including Harlem Epics. And so you kind of have that discrepancy where you have like the old, currently strongest people trying to get into pub raids, and you're competing with people who have only farmed up this Harlem Epics stuff. And you have this little bit of elitism where if people who are in Harlem Epics, they're always going to be overshadowed by anybody else who has any kind of other gear. And people kind of feel like, they farmed up these really strong sets, these Harlem sets, and they're just getting overlooked by people who are forming up some raid pubs. And there's arguments on both sides here. Raid leaders or people who are setting up pubs, are they too selective in their process? They're not giving people who have Harlem Epics a chance? Or is it really that the people who keep applying are not really strong enough? I think there is a little bit of both of those things going. I think if you're trying to deny that that is the case on either side of the issue, then you're not really looking into the issue all that much. I think that happens. I think elitism definitely happens, and I think people show up to raids definitely not ready for raids definitely happens. But the point I want to make here, guys, is that I do believe that people are sleeping a little bit on how powerful the Harlem Epics are, okay? We still got to remember that we're talking about 95 epics. There is a stigma that comes with the Harlem Epics that because they're so much easier to get, they're not as strong, because they're like as easy to farm up as one of the old legendary sets back in the previous cap. Like if they're that easy to get, they can't be this strong, and they are actually that strong. And I think it's because of that stigma that just looking at that gear makes it seem as though you didn't put as much effort as somebody else who in the previous level cap was doing all this shit to get their gear. There's no way that a set like this would be this strong. That is not the case, okay? The Harlem Epics are really potent. They are close to, they already exceed all of the 90 epics, and the only ones they're really losing to are like some of the upgraded stuff. I'm talking the beast stuff, the upgraded Luke armors, the Heblons and stuff like that. That's the only ones they're really losing to. Aside from that, they're really only, let's just say 5 or 10% off of their counterparts. Seriously, they're that far off. Like it's not that big a deal. But I really do think that it's the stigma of how easy it is to get. It makes it seem as though you didn't put as much effort as somebody else to get your set. Where honestly that might be the case, but the set itself is still relatively strong. Okay, so just know that, okay, if you're one of those guys who are discriminating against people who are wearing a Harlem Epic set, just know it's still a really strong set, even though it is easier to get. That being said, okay, there is a point to be made from the so-called elitists that, you have to look a little bit further than just getting the gear set. I mean, yes, you'll have to get the gear set to be even considered for raid, but then you also have to put those little smaller details, those smaller percentages that I was talking about earlier. You have to have a swap set. You have to kind of invest a little bit in putting some enchantments. If you're a percentage-based class, you will have to reinforce your weapon to at least, I would say, 10. Plus 10 would probably be good enough in any kind of raid leader's eyes. If you're a fixed damage class, you're you're going to have to refine your weapon, you know, at least to some degree to get a little bit stronger. So they're going to be looking towards that because, like he says, there's a lot of people doing pubs. There's a lot of people doing pubs, let me tell you. And there's a lot to choose from. And if he just has to make a split-second decision about whether or not to take this guy in his raid or somebody else in another raid, then the decision's easy. It's not personal. It's just quicker that way. Now, is it a big problem where the elitists are just like limiting everybody? No, I think what the bigger problem is, I don't think a lot of people like setting up pubs. You know, if people who are mega geared are the only ones who are setting up pubs, then you're obviously going to have a problem where they're going to be running the show, right? So I do think, you know, this is a multifaceted issue here that I think can be easily resolved if people just kind of make their own pubs, okay? If people aren't accepting you into your pub and you feel like you're strong enough to be in a raid, hey, make your own pub and people will see that you're strong enough and they'll join your pub. Trust me. I think the very biggest thing that's happening in pubs, because I've done a lot of pubs myself, is a lack of satyrs. There's so many people that are out there doing raids, and you can make maybe 10 different raid groups that have 6 out of 8 people in Luke, and then you can't get that last 2 members because we're so dry on satyrs. So I think satyrs are a bigger issue. If you're ready for raid and you're not getting accepted into raid, and you think you're strong enough to make a raid, make a pub yourself, and trust me, people will join because they're going to see how strong you are. They're going to see, oh, well, you're good enough for Luke. Luke is not that hard. We're a 90 cap. Luke is not that hard. If you're strong enough, if you have your Harlem Epics set and you have your swap set and you have some decent enchants and you reinforce your weapon, that's enough effort, I think, to get into and make any of your own pubs. You don't have to try and join the hyper mega geared raids. Trust me, I've tried to join those and I haven't gotten accepted on a lot of my alts. Not a big deal. Join another one or make your own. Very easy problem to solve. It's not like they're arbiters of who can and cannot do raid. Okay, just set up your own raid and just let those guys run their own elitist show. It's not a big deal, honestly. I think people blow a lot of things out of proportion, get their feelings hurt a little bit too quickly out here. Maybe I'm not looking too deep into it, but that's what I feel. There is a point to be made on both sides, but I think it's easily solved also on both sides. All right, so that was a kind of smaller topic. Just wanted to give my opinion on that in terms of the elitism and stuff like that. There is another smaller topic I want to talk about that was released, and I don't think it's as controversial. I didn't see a lot of people talking about this. I'm talking about the VIP contract. Okay, we've gotten a new contract added to the game, you know, similar to the Tactician's contract and the Neo Premium Plus contract and all those contracts. We've got a new one. It's called the VIP contract, and this one is a little bit different than all of the other contracts. Okay, I'll just tell you guys the perks. First perk is you actually get a 10% demon invitation reduction, cost reduction. So you're not spending as many demon invitations when you do hells. And the second main perk is that in all daily or weekly gated content, I'm talking the ones that have a certain number of times that you can run it a day. So I'm talking Tayberrs, I'm talking Ancients and OVs, I'm talking anything, you know, Assault Mode, Dawning Crevice, all of these places that you only have a certain limitation that you can do it a day. The VIP system, what it does is it gives you an extra small, it is very marginal, but an extra amount of the material that you're farming, particular to that dungeon, per run. So it's making your daily runs or weekly runs more efficient. Like I said, it is marginal. It's not giving you that much materials, you know. Every run of Tayberrs, you get 3 extra sky fragments. So say every week you get 180 sky fragments normally. Well, if you have the VIP system, you actually get closer to 200 sky fragments instead of the 180, and that's the difference we're talking about. You know, it's something close to 10% extra material. It's not that much. I think it's, you know, the reason why people aren't going out of their way to talk about it and really complain about it is because at the end of the day, it's like a 10% increase over your daily material gain. You probably won't even notice, but it is something that kind of adds up, especially the more characters that you do. It is an account-wide contract feature, and so if you're doing it on this daily content on like 10 different characters, it really does add up, right? So you're only getting 10 extra materials on this one character, but then if you do it across 20 characters, you know, it really adds up. You know, it's still the same 10%, but it's something that is much more significant when you look at the bigger picture. So I do think that you have to have a certain number of characters before the VIP is worth the cost of it. But if you are playing a lot of characters, then it probably is worth it. Do I really have much to complain about this? You know, I'll always call out anything that's completely pay to win. And this one is like pay to progress 10% faster. I don't think 10% is amount of time that people are really going to clamor and complain about. Yes, the people who want to get to the best in slot gear at the very fastest possible are going to want to get this as soon as possible and use it on as many characters. But like I said, I don't think it's as big in like if it was 50%, like you got your stuff 50% faster, then people will be like mad as shit. But 10%, you know, okay. I'll live with 10%. You get there in 10 minutes and I'll be there in 11, that kind of stuff. And I think it's fair, and I think they had to make it at this like marginal amount. If they went any higher than this, there would be a lot more controversy, a lot more people talking about it. It's kind of weird. This one fell kind of under the radar. I thought it was going to be a lot bigger deal. But quite frankly, you know, it's something that I don't use myself. I might end up using it if I get more characters into this endgame stuff. But until then, I'm going to hold my time on that, and it's not really controversial as far as I'm concerned. We do have to talk a little bit about the future content that's coming to the game, and there's a lot of things that are coming to the game that we already know about, and we're just going to have to twiddle our thumbs to know when. Okay, the when's, boys. When's are we going to be getting all this stuff? This is the main issue of being a region of the game that follows in KDNF's footsteps, because we always know what's going to be coming, and we're always going to be asking when. When's, huh? When's, boys. Don't complain to Reddit that I called you a when's, boys, if you're one of those people. But anyway, what are we going to be getting here in the future? First and foremost, guys, we're going to be getting Fiend Wars, and we already have the trailer for it. The trailer was released. Fiend Wars, what is it? It's basically, you know, I don't do a lot of research on this new content. I like experiencing the content kind of fresh when it comes here. But essentially what it is, it's going to be an 8-man raid of sorts, and you kind of, it's more of like a dungeon type raid where you have like a sprawling layout and you guys go on 2 different separate paths and you kind of race towards the end, and you're going to be concluding against the Fiend Wars Rift boss, you know, and it is going to be some of the hardest content in the game, you know, just like Beast was the hardest content in the game for a little while there. This is going to be much the same. It's just going to be another raid, 8-man. I think you can only do it on certain days, and you're going to have to do it. And this is where I was talking about. Tayberrs is the starting point for all of this new content that we don't have yet, Fiend Wars and stuff like that, because what you get as a reward for doing Fiend Wars is an upgrade to the armor set. A la the 90 set upgrades for the Luke raid, you're doing the same thing except for the Tayberrs gear. You do Fiend Wars to upgrade your Tayberrs armor. And that's the only thing that Fiend Wars provides, you know. Luke was something that was all-encompassing. It gave you a sub-equipment set, an armor set, and a new weapon, and upgraded all of those. Fiend Wars, it's only for the armor, so I would say you might want to prioritize the armor because of this, but it's probably going to take a long time to get a full armor set. Prioritize whatever you get out of Hells first with all of your Tayberrs materials. Most people are going to suggest, hey, upgrade your sub-equipment first because that's the biggest damage increase over Hellon. But, you know, get whatever you get out of the Skyrift Hells and then use your Tayberrs equipment from the NPC to upgrade that, because it's going to take a little bit of time to farm up enough materials, whatever we need out of Fiend Wars, to start upgrading your armors. And quite frankly, I'm not sure yet. This is why I like waiting for content so I can talk about it when it actually releases, because I don't know. I'm ignorant to the fact of, I'm not sure if the upgraded Fiend Wars stuff is going to be just like it is for the Harlem Epics stuff. And by that I mean you can actually upgrade the Harlem Legendary with the Harlem Epics right when you get them, because they share the same set effect, so you can immediately replace any legendary with an epic gear and retain the same set effect, or at least the effects of the legendary set effect, even while wearing an epic. If it's the same way with Tayberrs, that's going to be really nice, because then immediately when you get the materials from Fiend Wars, you can upgrade your armor pieces individually right when you get the materials, and you'll immediately get a damage boost from just doing that. But most likely they're probably not going to be the case, and you're going to have to upgrade everything all at once, in which case it's going to be just like all of the other raids that we've had that has upgrade type stuff. You have to do it all at once or not at all. So I guess we're just kind of waiting for it. I mean, I don't have very many opinions. I don't know the lore about it. Basically, I guess the people that we have been farming all of these rifts from, all of the epics that we've been getting, they're getting kind of pissed about that. So they're getting their revenge. They're coming from the other world to, I guess, take back their epics. I guess that's kind of the meme that's going on. But we'll see when it comes out. I am excited for it, and you know, we're definitely going to be ready. We just like I said for Luke Rave, we're probably still going to be having a shortage of satyrs that are ready for it because they're the most important. They're the key. They're the key here, right? They're the key. If we can make this guy work, if we can make Satyr work, then we're going to have a really good time in Fiend Wars. But that's not the only content that we're going to be getting in the future, guys. I've mentioned it many times now. This is the content that I'm waiting for the most because I know it takes a little bit of time to farm, and that's the Abysmal swap set. That is the name of the level 95 swap set. It kind of homogenizes all of the swaps. So right now in the game currently, most people have a 6-piece OV swap set. Some people have a 9-piece OV swap set. Some people don't even have an OV swap set and they just wear tainted gear. Whatever the case may be, everybody has a current swap set right now. Some classes have a legendary weapon that they have. Some characters even utilize a unique weapon. The swap system is crazy in terms of how in-depth it can be, depending on what character you play and what is the best modifiers that you can get for them. It's way too complicated. I was going to make a guide video on this, but I figured, you know what? The fact that they're going to homogenize it, make it really simple, and make it the same for every class, that's going to be the way to go, especially when it comes to the guide video, because I don't want to fucking undertake that kind of task. Then I have to start talking about multiplicative, additive bonuses, which ones are better, fuck all of that, okay? I'm just going to wait for this Abysmal swap set to come out, because basically what it is a complete 12 out of 12 swap set that is in the same vein as the Harlem Legendaries, right? It's just something that is guaranteed. All you have to do is farm for it. You can shorten the time a little bit if you're lucky enough to get any of those pieces to drop, but once they do, they actually come in a full set effect, and we've never actually had a sub-equipment set effect that buffs up our buff skill. So we've never even had an earring that buffs up our buff skill, because you can't actually get a tainted earring. So earrings are something that, you know, we've never been able to utilize in our swap set. Now you will be able to, and swap sets are going to be more sets. I think the only character that utilized a swap set that wasn't a regular OV set, you know, a very low level 70 OV set, is the Crusader. The Crusader has been utilizing Epics as their swap set for a long time, and they're the only class that has had that kind of functionality with their gear set. It makes sense since it's so important, since they're #1 in the fucking game. But yeah, it's going to be nice to have another swap set that's a little bit more potent than trying to cobble up together all of these random epics depending on whatever character you are. Especially in the case of things like Weapon Master. I've already seen the price of things like Ancient Ruins Lightsaber. This is a weapon that used to sell for like 200 mil. No joke. 200 mil, and now they're selling it for only 10 mil because they know that this update's coming really soon. Not to mention, they actually added the item in the Lost Treasure. So they started adding swap items in the Lost Treasure. I don't understand why the fuck they waited this long to release that feature in the game. It just doesn't make any sense. Now they release it when they're releasing the Abysmal swap sets here coming pretty soon. They're gonna have to take it out then, because if I get it to drop afterwards, who's gonna want to buy a freaking Ancient Ruins lightsaber when I can get the Abysmal lightsaber and freaking have everything, you know, have a better set? So they need to remove it out of the LT just as quickly as they added it in. Looking forward to that. It is going to take a long time. Like I said, it's something I want to come sooner rather than later, because I don't want it to be like the Imperial Coliseum where, you know, they release it so late that you can't even capitalize on its main functionality. Like, dude, we need this swap set soon, because I want to be able to capitalize on having a full swap set by the time harder content like Fiend Wars and stuff comes out, which is not going to be the case. Fiend Wars is going to come out, but I don't think we're going to need it for that, but definitely we're going to need it for Prey Raid. So let's go, get it out here. And last but not least, but future content, this one is I'm not really sure about it. Okay, the two new characters, the Ghost Blade class as well as the Enchanter class, both of these characters were announced in the Winter Festival last year, last December. So it's been 4 months since we've known about them, and we have no idea when they're going to be coming. We know for a fact that Fiend Wars was already out in Korea before they saw the Enchanter and the Ghost Slayer. So we can only assume that whenever they come, if they do, which they're going to, but when they do, it's going to be a little bit after Fiend Wars. So we have to wait for Fiend Wars. You know, if we're going in the timeline at KDNF, Fiend Wars is going to come out first, and then we'll have a chance to talk about the Enchanter and the Ghost Blade guy. I know some people are really, really excited about these characters. You know, for some reason, there's 59 characters in the game. These two are the ones that are going to get you hype about the game, I guess. I don't know, but they do look interesting, especially the Enchanter, I think, is a real kicker here. It's going to be a unique change to the buff meta right now. You have two choices now. Adding a brand new Deeps character, well, it's not going to be as a big an increase, obviously, because there's so many other Deeps characters, especially characters that seem to play like him. There's a lot of characters like that. Whereas the buffer type characters, she might provide something that's more unique. Now, if you're the kind of person who goes off popularity lists, which I don't want to, that's not a topic I really want to talk about too much in this podcast, but if you're the kind of guy who goes off the KDNF popularity list, and you know that there are some issues to be worked out with the Enchanter in terms of her buff potential as well as her ease of use. A lot of people really put a lot of stock into that in Korea. If they get too complicated like EK or something like that, they don't like it. Well, Enchanter's the same way. If she's a little bit too gimmicky, or if she can't just get the damage numbers, that's all we care about. And so Enchantress hasn't really been looked at highly as of late. But then, you know, look at the flip side. The Ghostblade has actually been really, really, really high on the rankings just because of how strong he is. This guy is crazy. So if you're the kind of guy who actually cares about that kind of stuff, then it's something to consider. But I do think it's going to shake up the meta and shake up people's interest again in other types of characters, especially buffer type characters, because we're so stagnant on just the two. It's going to be nice to have at least another one in the mix. Now, as far as when we're going to be getting them, well, that's when's, boys. I have no idea, guys. But the timeline of events I'm foreseeing is Fiend Wars. We already got the announcement of that. Maybe soon afterwards, we're going to be getting the Abysmal swap set that we're going to be getting. And then perhaps maybe at the same time, these new classes, these two new classes. And those of you guys who are patiently waiting for them are finally going to be vindicated. Personally, and I think we're going to be getting at some time in that timeline, I've been waiting for a lot of the class rebalances. Characters like Monk have gotten new vacuum skills. Characters like Striker got new vacuum skills, and just a little bit of ease and convenience with these classes are going to be getting changes, which you guys are going to be seeing here pretty soon in my DFO Charge series. A new series I started for the level 95 cap, the new PvE series. I've been putting a lot of effort into these other characters. You know, obviously my mains, my knight, I've been putting a ton of effort, but with how the Harlem system has been working, I want to see my Striker and my Monk finally rise up with their new gear sets and their new skills, and that should be coming here sooner rather than later. So I'm preparing for that, and they're already getting a lot stronger than they were previously. You'll definitely be seeing that in the DFO Charge series, but that's going to be a little bit down the line. And hell, maybe I wait for these changes to come before I make those videos. Who knows? But anyway, guys, that's all I got for today. Been talking for the past hour or so. Probably edit this up a little bit because there's been a lot. I've just kind of been spitballing here, any kind of topic that I can think about for 95 cap. A lot of stuff that's been happening, guys. I want to be a little bit more time relevant. You know, these podcasts, I've been meaning to do this podcast like 3 times already, and I started recording and then I don't finish it. I'm happy I was able to finish it this time, but I want to be a little bit more time relevant with the new things that are happening, kind of give my opinion on them and just kind of give a rundown on and talk about them in podcast fashion. And shit, the fact that we've been going 4 months already and I haven't done one is a little bit, I'm slacking. I know, I realize I'm slacking. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. There was episode 8 of the Arad Airways podcast, and I will catch you nights later.